window sash on the secondary facade, and if no such existing there is no such existing sash, the new sash will match the configuration and finish of the window sash on the facade. So again, the new window opening rule didn't include any requirements for what the sash should be. Staff has always kind of interpreted that to be consistent with what the rule would allow for a new window in an existing opening. And so we're codifying that and making that require the same thing.
Right. And the other big change, going back to this issue that we were talking about importing discussions that have happened, is these rules also now are intended or designed, and you can tell us what you think about the way we craft this language to deal with what we call the Nora Jones issue, which is that there was a big to-do made over Nora Jones had a side facade that was quite visible. She wanted to put a lot of windows in it. Our window rules don't limit the number of windows you can put in a side facade. It just was, as long as they're in a regular pattern, the theory was, when this was drafted years ago, it didn't matter, because secondary facades had windows, and as long as they were sort of consistent, and it was going to be fine. And there was a big to-do made over the fact that there was a lot of, Ms. Jones was asking and had gotten permission from the staff to put in, I think it was 10 windows on the side facade. And there was a lot of feeling in Cobble Hill that was transforming this side facade into a primary facade. There was too much glass. And it turned out that Ms. Jones decided to follow, even though she had a permit, she could have, she could have just said, I have my permit, I'm going to go and put these windows in. She decided to work with her neighbors and put in fewer windows. But we sort of heard that, and we thought, well, this is a good point. And side facades really need to be primarily for masonry, and that ratio of masonry to solid void is really important. And we came up with this language designed to sort of give the staff the power to limit the kinds of the number of windows you can put in the top.
Right. So now we say that the location of new window openings is consistent and regular. That's the old language. And that the number, size, or placement of the new window openings does not change the character of the facade as a secondary and subservient facade with a high solid to void ratio.
Actually, the size.
Right, the size is included here. So the staff now has the ability to limit the size, the placement, and the number.
Yeah.
Actually, also, especially during good times, we will see the rear facade of townhome downtown where it became very much of a color facade, but they have a glass, all glass wall. So this really, you're not going to allow that.
This is for new window openings at the staff level, correct? And
we're not talking about opening the
right.
It's like a whole wall.
Right, yeah. Right now, the new window opening rule says you can combine two window openings, but in no event can you increase them by more than 10% in height. So that already kind of limits the amount of glass. But what it does mean is that you can have up to the outer edge of each end window and kind of everything in between. That is something.
Between two
windows. And the other thing that is sort of relevant to this and to your question is that over the last 7 or 8 years, as Mark described, the commissioners have been feeling that maintaining the volume of the building is important. And they've sort of done that by saying the top floor is a significant feature. So it used to be the former courthouse was a significant feature. Now they've been saying the entire top floor of a row house is a significant feature, and therefore they rarely approve a full height addition or a rooftop addition that sits on the rear wall and in any way sort of obscures your reading of that top floor. And so the staff does not approve modifying window openings on the top floor because it's something the commission has been pretty consistently strict about as they've been looking at additions.
This reminds me that I forgot to mention, this was implied what I said earlier in my brief introduction, but just to sort of reinforce it. So the commission, the commission sort of enunciated this policy. We now sort of codified that in these rules. But when you testify at the commission, it's a mistake, kind of conceptually, to come in and say, this should be disapproved because it doesn't meet the rules. Okay? That doesn't make any sense in terms of the statutory scheme of what we have in the landmark. By definition, everything that you can do it staff, it can be, have no effect, and otherwise be appropriate. But the commission is there to deal with situations that aren't clear cut. So it doesn't, and this is just a sort of a brief plea for good advocacy. Because if you stand up there and say it should be denied because the rules, the commissioners are like, it's discounted, boom. It doesn't mean, it's a meaningless statement. But you have the reasons. Why? Because, and fill it out. But you can't just use the rules as the only thing that should ever be approved by the commission is what's in the rules, because that's confusing functions set up in the original statute. Okay? So just always give reasons. Don't just, the rules are not, there, again, clear things that staff can do, gives applicants a sense of this, I can get this if I do this. But that doesn't mean that everything that doesn't mean it is otherwise inappropriate by definition.
It's really an administrative tool.
Right, yeah.
On the, if I understand what you said, if you have two windows on a secondary facade, you're allowed to put glass in between those two windows? Combine them at staff level, and they can be 10% taller
Yeah.
at staff level.
As long as they're not visible and not removing anything significant.
Right.
Where do you deal with the materials for the frames, such as metal and aluminum in particular, as substitution for wood?
On the rear facades, the commission has historically been more flexible about materials for windows, but on the primary facade, the rules require, this is again for a staff level permit, you can always go to the commission for something else, because the rules that allow the staff to write a permit require that the new windows match the historic windows in terms of configuration, so the number of panes, operation, double hung versus casement, details, which are the profiles and dimensions of those framing members, finish, which is the color, and then in the case of smaller buildings, it also requires that you match the material. So in row houses, detached or attached houses, and small apartment buildings and small tenement buildings and small commercial buildings, you must, in order to get a staff permit, you must match the historic window material. On large apartment buildings and large commercial buildings, you can do a substitute material as long as you meet those other four criteria, the details, the profiles match, and the color and the configuration and operation.
And how do you determine what is large and what is not large?
Okay, basically anything that is 6 stories or less in height and 40 feet or less in width. And anything that is 41 feet or wider
1 inch.
or 7 stories in height is large. And that's actually written in the rules, so you can see that if you need to double check.
Okay, so, oh, yeah.
These rules tend to seem to be sort of Manhattan, Brooklyn-centric, and in areas like Staten Island or Queens or maybe some parts of the Bronx where there's more detached type of individual standing-alone buildings. How does this question of side facades and rear facades address?
In the window rule, the primary facades are defined as any facade with a design or significant set of features. So it doesn't just have to be the street-facing facade. Side facades are also considered primary facades in the design. So in the case of district freestanding houses, on the front and the sides, if the design carries all the way through, then you need to match the historic window in terms of material as well as all of the other components. On rear facades, you would be able to change the material, although in a smaller house, lots of times you have windows on the rear facade and on the side facade, they're in the same room, and most people aren't going to want 2 different types of windows. But the rules actually do apply pretty well to most of the other districts so far. So,
I mean, I think the issue is the flexibility and the impact of the regulation. Not as less than much.
it's a little less flexible in those districts, I think.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah.
Any of these amendments touch the category special windows? In other words, can somebody sort of twist them to?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing we're talking about is section 3 of the proposed rulemaking, which is rear yard additions or enlargement to row houses in historic. So remember, we're talking about a specific subcategory of things. Row houses, in historic. again, also reflects the evolution of the commission in terms of, again, a lot of testimony that we've gotten over the last couple of years about how big rear yard additions should be. Because prior to this rule, it was basically, you couldn't fill out, you couldn't go to full height of the building, full width, and you couldn't go full lot coverage. And if it wasn't visible, that was kind of it. And so these rules now are designed to have a lot more, to expressly consider a lot more things that the commission has looked at in the past in terms of how they view what's an appropriately sized addition.
Sure. So, I mean, the main criteria that's really, it was always that the addition be on a non-visible rear facade, that it not extend to the rear lot line, that it not remove any significant features, and that it not remove the entire width of the rear wall. So that you can't do a full width addition, but you can't remove the entire width of the original rear wall. And instead, you need to modify the original openings to create access into your addition, and that it complies with the zoning resolution. And we have added a few things. The main one is about context, and there was a criteria that said other rear yard conversions exist in the block. So we would look at that, and if there were one or two other rear yard additions, we'd say, okay, they can have an addition. And that really, over the last 7, 8, 9 years, has changed. The commission has started to look at context much more carefully. And this actually sort of came when we had a lot of additions for Brooklyn, where there hadn't been a lot of additions in the past. So our earlier applications were sort of more Manhattan districts, where there had been many rear yard additions, and so the blocks were pretty compromised already. But in the early 2000s, we started to get applications from Brooklyn where those blocks hadn't been very built up, and the community and the commission really all sort of very strong sentiment that these additions in these very intact blocks had a huge impact. And so the commission started to really ask for information about every single other rear yard addition in the block, how far out it projects, how high it is, how does the proposed addition relate in terms of scale projection to the building to which is being added, the other buildings and their additions, and the central green space. And so we've been interpreting that criteria that says other rear yard additions exist in a pretty strict way. We've been asking for, at staff level, for a lot of information to make sure that what the addition that we're approving is comparable to the other additions in the block. And again, this is confusing to applicants. It doesn't say that anywhere in the rules, so we're actually making that explicitly clear. And so now it says that a majority of the other buildings in the block feature comparable or larger